You're welcome. I wish they would have just left the encoder for YouTube, because then I would have just been able to use Google Hangouts and just less hassle. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming to Author Chat. We are live. We are with Lindsay It is Brandy, right?
Yep. It's Brandy, like candy with a B. That's what I always tell everybody.
Lindsay Brandy and her debut, Nemesis and the Swan. And this cover looks so creepy. Like, great for October, man. Like, that was crazy. I love this cover.
Yeah.
Cover so much. So, of course, you guys know the drill.
Xena did such a good job.
They did. Guys watching, if you have any questions, you can toss them into the live chat below. If for some reason YouTube isn't allowing you to do that, you can toss them over to Instagram or Twitter. Just make sure you tag me or DM me, and I will find your questions. So thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We are having a slight delay, so if you hear like a slight pause, it's because it's got to connect. So you're up north, right? I think the backer book said you're in Pennsylvania.
Yep, I'm in Pennsylvania and Lancaster.
Okay.
So just outside of Amish. We actually just moved like the middle of Amish country. We're more in town now, which is nice. We are not Amish, but we had some Amish neighbors, and we're close to now for work. So we're enjoying that, and not having to drive around buggies anymore is a really nice thing. That would really slow things down on the commute. So I'm happy being outside of the country a little bit.
I know that. I'm from Ohio originally, so we were like smack dab in the middle of Amish country. So
yeah, that's like the counterpart to Lancaster. So
yeah. All right, so what gave you the thought to write this book?
Well, I started to get interested in the French Revolution when I was in college. I was taking an art in college, and it was supposed to be 19th century art, but we started at the end of the 18th century with French Revolution. And I thought the artwork was so interesting because it was so political. And depending on who was doing the painting, the same person would either look like a god or like a total demon. I just thought it was really interesting trying people in such different in different lights, and so I wanted to know more about it. I started learning about all these interesting women who did things like stab a guy to death in his bathtub because they didn't like what he was writing, and you know, it was a wild and crazy time. So that kind of got me started down the road. Yeah, Charlotte Corday. There was the painting, I should have brought it with me. It's called The Death of Marat, if you want to look it up, by Jacques-Louis David. And it's this guy who's in his bathtub writing. He had to soak in the tub because he'd been hiding in the sewers of Paris for years because people hated him. So he got this skin disease that made him like all uncomfortable. He had to soak in the bathtub to do his writing. So he's there with his like desk made out of a board that goes across the top of his tub writing, and this young girl who's like 20 walks in and kills him in the tub. And she went to the guillotine for it a couple weeks later. But this was the painting that I was like, what in this time? This is so crazy. So I started to learn more about Marat and the things that made people so angry that he said. And he does make an appearance in Nemesis and the Swan. That kind of got me started.
Crazy.
And then I started, yeah, it was a really crazy time. There's so many, you know, kind of the off with the heads, let them eat cake, that kind of stuff about the French Revolution. But there's so much more, and there were so many interesting people and young women who took crazy risks and really stood up for what they believed in. So that was pretty cool. And as I was writing, I was doing a lot of research into the time period. You know, I wanted to get things like, what does the interior of their house look like? What are they wearing? And that's when I came across the that ended up on the cover of the book. And it's actually called Lover's Eye jewelry, and it was a real trend in Europe. And it was really fun. And I was like, ooh, this has a story behind it. So that's how it kind of started to come together.
That is so crazy. So this cover is so creepy. Without giving anything away for the elements of the story, what part of the cover like are directly from the book? I mean, you mentioned the eye jewelry. What about like the wings and the name?
Yes. So the swan part actually comes from Hélène, our main character. She lives with her aristocratic family. They have a country house called Chateau des Cygnes, which is like the castle of the swans in French. And they have a pair of swans that is on their lake that's always there. And she loves to go out to the lake. So she likes the birds. Her mom also has lots of birds. There are just different metaphors and things that are meaningful to her with the birds throughout. But as the nemesis of the swan goes, that's actually from Greek mythology and Helen of Troy. So I won't say any more about that because you have to wait until you read the story to understand. But the eye jewelry is definitely part of the mystery. And yep, it's all tied in. Zena did a great job of really making everything meaningful on the cover. So.
That's so cool. So of course, being a debut, what was it like to get the notice that you were going to be published?
It was pretty awesome. So I was working at an elementary school at the time. This was like a year and a half ago because publishing, everything takes forever. So I was working in a 5th grade classroom, and I got my agent, and I was like, okay guys, hang on. So I read it, and I told all the kids, they were there first when it happened. I was like, guess what, it's happening, and they all cheered. So that was cool. I could just share it with them. And it takes so long, everything in publishing takes so long. So it has sort of felt real in increments, I think. But it's finally happening. So that's exciting. Finally gonna be real. It was a good feeling to hold the book in my hand and like, yeah, it's gonna happen.
Well, of course, publishing in the time of COVID probably isn't what you were hoping it was going to be. This really sucks about all these books coming out this year and not being able to do actual signings and stuff. So what can we expect next from you?
Oh, I lost you for a sec there. So my next book that I'm working on doing some edits for right now is called The Inevitable. And it actually came out of doing some research into tattoo history. And so I have here, I've got one on my arm, I got one on my foot, I have a couple tattoos, and I like all things vintage. So I was doing some research into how I wanted to tattoo my arm to cover a scar. And it kind of led me into this interesting research about how women in the past, before it was really a kosher thing to do to get a tattoo, it was kind of this act of defiance. Like, I own my own body and I'm gonna put something on there that I want. And they'd usually have to hide it. But it really got me thinking about women in the past and the choices that were available to them and us now, and the choices that are available to us. And there's a speculative element with the goddesses of fate. There are 3 goddesses of fate, and they're involved, and a dual timeline. So we've got a tattooed freak from New York's Dreamland Park, and an art student in modern day New York. And all those timelines kind of mesh together.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Okay.
Thank
so
you.
What book have you fallen in love with this year?
Just one. I really liked Etiquette for Runaways by Liza Taylor. It's another Blackstone book. We have the same publisher, and I saw it, and the photo on the cover just really captivated me. It's this beautiful young woman with her hand kind of placed on the wall, and she's got these bracelets, but her face, you can tell there's like something broken, something wrong and sad, and it really encapsulated the story because it takes place in Jazz Age in the South, and then it's in New York. So it's a really good story. I loved it, and I listened to the audiobook, which was great.
So you asked about just one book. Are there more that you've fallen in love with this year?
That one was probably my favorite new book this year. I'm reading We Are Not Free by Tracy Chee, and I'm really enjoying that too. Tracy's going to pick with me at Y'all Fest, and I know her already, so I've really been enjoying that. And I know it's a very personal story for her because it's about her family members who were in an internment camp during World War II. So it's a really good story too. It's multiple points of view, and oh, Jess, I think you, on my screen, it shows that you're muted.
No, I keep muting it. I keep muting it because I'm in the living room, and like my oldest daughter decided to try and make a cake, and she burnt it. So like everybody's yelling at everybody else.
Oh, no.
Cooking, and I'm chaos is happening, and it's so much fun. What is the title that you're waiting for?
I have 2 daughters too. What do you mean? Like something I'm hoping, like something I'm looking forward to that's coming out soon? Maybe this is cheating a little bit because it's a recent release, but I haven't gotten to read it yet. I'm really excited about Mexican Gothic, but I haven't gotten to read it.
Oh, I got that one from, I had 2 credits still from the Book of the Month Club, and I grabbed that one, and was it Fire on High or something like that? And I was so sad I didn't care for it. I'm so iffy on like the ghost story, paranormal stories. It just didn't work out. I'm very sad because that cover looks so amazing.
Yeah, it's a subjective thing. Yeah, it's a really pretty cover.
What is something that you hope that readers take away from your story?
Oh, right now, as we're in such a divisive political time, I think that the French Revolution feels more relevant than ever, unfortunately. I think, seeing how can super divisive and politicized, and people can lose their heads figuratively and literally is a really good reminder. And so I think at this time in history, I hope that people can see the French Revolution through Helene's eyes, but then see him in a new light too. And think those extremes and how we categorize people and say, this is my side, that's your side, and just how badly that can turn out, and it's so important to talk to each other and find solutions, because as soon as we start to really separate and guys, things can go really badly. So I hope it gives some good insight into things now, and just helping people to really listen to other perspectives before just separating everyone into categories.
That's cool. All right, let's see, we have a writing question. I keep hearing that you like Greek mythology. Would you be willing to write your own take?
That's a good question. At this point, I don't have any plans to. I feel like some of those things find their ways into my stories, but I've never actually written like a retelling. I love Lovely War by Julie Berry. I think she did a job with that. So I don't know, maybe someday if I figure out how to do that, that would be cool. But at this point, I don't have any plans to. Thanks for asking.
What is some great advice for aspiring authors? Are there any first-time traps that new authors tend to fall into?
I think the best advice I can give is to be in it for the long run, and to remember that the finish line keeps moving. So, you know, when starting out, you feel like if I can just finish this book, then I'm going to get an agent, I'm going to sell it, and everything will be fine. Then you feel like, if I can just get an agent, everything's going to be fine, I'll be a success. And then you have to sell the book, and then you feel like, okay, if I can just get a contract, if I can just, and it's always this kind of moving finish line. So you're never finished. But if you can try as much as possible to celebrate those victories as you go and to be part of that process, you'll be much happier. And it's the process that you're changing your words, but your words are changing you, and you're sharing them with other people as you go, whether it's critique partners or your agent, your editors, your readers eventually, just being present in that process and enjoying it will make it a lot smoother. And I don't always succeed at that, but I'm trying.
Did getting published change how your writing process works?
I don't think getting published changed how my writing process works. I think just the more that I write, the more that I learn better ways of staying organized and better ways of doing things. So when I started writing Nemesis and the Swan, 2 toddlers at home. So I was always kind of just, here and there, writing this, reading that, writing this, like my daughter would be in the bathtub and I'm reading and she's saying, mommy, no book, me. And I'm like, okay. So, your life changes, all kinds of things change. I tend to be more of a pantser, but when you're bringing historical timelines in, it does give you that structure that you need, and you have to keep track of that. So in my office, in my writing office, up in our spare room, I have a bunch of ribbons strung walls, and I used little paper clip or like clothespins, and I put plot cards on there, and I outline my chapters so that I can look at them as a whole, which just really helps me to visualize, where have I been, where am I going? So I've kind of learned to do that a little bit better. And I think more to your question, like once you are published, you have an editor who's fact checking you and double checking everything, you realize, okay, next time I'm going to make sure I keep track of everything. So it does make you a little more meticulous, but you have those people who are there to help you if you miss something. So it's not really that scary. But the organization has definitely been the hardest thing for me, just because I can be a little bit, like a hurricane upstairs. So.
Awesome. That's actually like a really good tip, because like I've seen people, for authors that are doing series and stuff, and they have like massive book Bibles and stuff, or I know another author said she had like Postits everywhere. Mm-hmm. I like the little card thing, because I would get so confused. I would get lost somewhere.
Yeah, well, and it's movable. It's like a clothesline. So if I decide like, oh, I can't have this scene as the first scene in the story because you don't have enough background knowledge yet, I can slide it over and I can put something else there, and so it's a nice way if you're a pantser, you still have to work within story structure. You still have to have a structure. So you can have those surprises, but you're still working within that plot line. So that helps me a lot.
Awesome. So when you decided to become an author, was there any one item that you just had to have? Like a new computer or a desk or a fuzzy blanket or
I have to think back to when I decided I wanted to be an author. I don't remember like a certain item at that point, but one thing I do always have to have is a pretty journal, like to scribble all my notes, and it has to match the vibe of whatever I'm working on. My husband likes to tease me about this because he's like, you could just get like, you know, like a plain one at the dollar store. I'm like, no, it has to look like how I need to feel. so that's one important thing for me. Like the vibe is important. But yeah, when I first decided that I wanted to write, I was in college, and I remember talking to one of my professors who had become a real good friend of mine and saying, I think I want to do this, and I don't know, do you think I can? Like, am I crazy? And I remember her saying, you can do it. You have to be a little maverick about it, and you have to be patient with it, but you can do it. So I think the one thing I had to have in that sense was people around me keeping from giving up and encouraging me, because it is a long process. So they are like my fuzzy blanket for the soul.
Well, that is the last question that we have today. Thank you again so much for coming on. Guys, this book is out. I'm pretty sure it's out now, right?
It's Tuesday. We're just a couple of days away. It hits shelves Tuesday, so you can pre-order.
Tuesday. Make sure you guys pre-order. And you guys can join us next Thursday. I'm pretty sure it's a Thursday, the 29th at 2 p.m. again to talk with Mara Rutherford in her series, Coral of Crown and Pearl, and I'm going the wrong way, and Book 2, Kingdom of Sea and Stone. I loved this book so much, and I am so excited to read Book 2. Very kind of sad that it's thinner. It's not as thick as Book 1. That scares me. But definitely make sure. Oh no, Book 2 is thicker. Book 1 was smaller. Yeah, I had that right the first time. My goodness. So definitely tune in then, and I'm gonna get back to reading today. Lots of stuff to do, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this show, and check us out next time. And thank you again for coming on, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me. Sorry about the internet issues. Thanks for being patient. Take care.
Okay.
Bye,
guys.